It was the summer of 1995 when Evelyn moved into her grandmother's old house in the small, secluded town of Ravenwood. The house, a grand but decaying Victorian mansion, had stood empty since her grandmother's mysterious disappearance a decade earlier. Despite its eerie reputation, Evelyn saw potential in the place and decided to restore it to its former glory. From the moment she stepped inside, Evelyn felt a chill in the air, despite the sweltering heat outside. The house seemed to breathe, its wooden floors creaking under her feet, and its walls whispering secrets long forgotten. She brushed off her unease, attributing it to the house's age and her own overactive imagination. Days turned into weeks as Evelyn threw herself into the renovation. The locals avoided the mansion, spinning tales of ghostly apparitions and strange noises. Old Mr. Whitaker, the town historian, warned her about the house's dark past. According to him, Evelyn's grandmother, Eliza, had been a gifted medium who communicated with spirits. She had become obsessed with contacting a particular spirit that haunted the house, and it was during one of her seances that she vanished without a trace. Evelyn was skeptical of the supernatural, but couldn't deny the strange occurrences in the house. Objects moved on their own. Disembodied whispers echoed through the halls, and shadowy figures darted in the corners of her vision. At night, she heard footsteps outside her door and the distant sound of a woman sobbing. One evening, while sorting through the attic, Evelyn discovered her grandmother's old journal. It detailed Eliza's attempts to communicate with a malevolent spirit known as the Whisperer. According to the journal, the Whisperer was a vengeful entity that fed on fear and despair. Eliza had believed that the spirit was responsible for a series of unexplained deaths in the family. Evelyn's hands trembled as she read the final entry. The Whisperer grows stronger. I fear it will consume me if I do not find a way to banish it. To my dearest Evelyn, if you are reading this, please leave this house. The darkness here is beyond anything I have ever encountered. Determined to uncover the truth, Evelyn sought out Mr. Whitaker again. He revealed that the Whisperer was once a man named Jonathan Crane, a notorious murderer who had been executed in the house's basement in the late 1800s. His spirit had cursed the house, vowing to torment anyone who lived there. That night, Evelyn set up a camera in the basement, hoping to capture evidence of the supernatural. As the clock struck midnight, the temperature plummeted, and an oppressive silence filled the air. Suddenly, the camera flickered, and a shadowy figure materialized in the corner. It was a tall, gaunt man with hollow eyes and a sinister smile. The Whisperer moved closer, his voice a chilling hiss. "You cannot escape me, Evelyn. Your fear gives me power." Evelyn felt a cold hand on her shoulder, and she screamed, the sound echoing through the empty house. She ran upstairs, locking herself in her bedroom, but the Whisperer followed, his laughter filling her ears. Desperate, she grabbed her grandmother's journal, reciting the banishment spell written on the last page. The room grew darker, and the Whisperer's form began to waver. With a final, blood-curdling scream, he vanished, leaving behind an eerie silence. Evelyn collapsed, exhausted and terrified, but alive. The next morning, she left Ravenwood, vowing never to return. The house stood empty once more, its secrets buried in the shadows. But every now and then, locals claimed to hear whispers on the wind and the sobbing of a woman who never found peace. Evelyn never spoke of her experience, but she carried the scars of that night forever. And though she left the house behind, she couldn't shake the feeling that the Whisperer was still watching, waiting for the next soul to claim. As Evelyn continued her journey, she decided to delve deeper into her family's history, hoping to find answers and perhaps some closure. She visited archives, libraries, and old family friends, piecing together a dark and twisted lineage. It seemed that her family had always been plagued by tragedies, each generation suffering unexplained deaths and disappearances. Her research led her to an old, faded photograph of Jonathan Crane. He was a handsome man in his youth, but his eyes held a cruel glint. She found court records detailing his crimes, brutal murders of women he believed to be witches. His obsession with the occult and his eventual execution for his heinous acts cemented his place as the Whisperer, a spirit cursed to remain restless and vengeful. Evelyn's nights were plagued with nightmares, vivid and horrifying. She dreamed of Jonathan Crane's victims, their faces twisted in agony, their voices pleading for justice. The Whisperer's laughter echoed in her dreams, a reminder that he was never far away. Desperate for a solution, Evelyn sought out a renowned paranormal investigator, Dr. Samuel Graves. Dr. Graves had a reputation for dealing with malevolent entities and had written extensively on the subject. He agreed to meet Evelyn, intrigued by her story and the history of the house. Dr. Graves conducted a thorough investigation of the mansion. He used various instruments to measure paranormal activity, and what he found was disturbing. The house was a hotspot of spiritual energy, with numerous entities trapped within its walls. But the Whisperer was the strongest and most dangerous among them. Dr. Graves explained that the Whisperer fed on fear and despair, growing stronger with each victim. To banish him permanently, they needed to perform a complex ritual, one that required courage and a deep connection to the spirit world. Evelyn, with her grandmother's bloodline, was the key. The ritual took days to prepare. Evelyn and Dr. Graves gathered rare herbs, ancient relics, and sacred texts. They set up a protective circle in the basement, where the energy was strongest. As midnight approached, they began the ritual, chanting in an ancient language that resonated with power. The air grew thick with tension, and the temperature dropped. The Whisperer appeared, more menacing than ever. He taunted Evelyn, reminding her of her fears, her family's cursed history. But Evelyn stood her ground, her voice unwavering as she recited the incantations. The room shook, and the shadows seemed to come alive, swirling around the Whisperer. He writhed and screamed, his form distorting as the power of the ritual took hold. Evelyn felt a surge of energy, a connection to her grandmother and the spirits of the house. She channeled their strength, pushing the Whisperer back into the darkness. With a final, agonized wail, the Whisperer was sucked into a vortex of shadows, disappearing into the void. The house grew still, the oppressive weight lifting. Evelyn collapsed, exhausted but victorious. Dr. Graves helped her to her feet, his eyes filled with respect and admiration. "You did it, Evelyn. You broke the curse." Evelyn nodded, tears streaming down her face. She had faced her deepest fears and emerged stronger. The house, once a place of darkness, now felt lighter, as if a great burden had been lifted. Over the next few months, Evelyn continued the renovations, transforming the mansion into a beautiful home. The whispers ceased, the shadows no longer menacing. The spirits of the house found peace, their tragic stories finally laid to rest. Evelyn opened the house to the public, sharing its history and her family's story. She turned it into a museum, a place where people could learn about the past and the importance of facing their fears. The mansion, once a symbol of despair, became a beacon of hope and resilience. Though Evelyn moved on with her life, she never forgot the lessons she learned. She understood the power of the past and the strength it took to confront it. The whispering shadows of her family's history had been banished, but their memory lived on, a testament to the enduring spirit of those who refused to be consumed by darkness. Stood, a reminder that even in the face of great evil, there is always hope, and the strength to overcome it lies within each of us.